Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of the Mission Matters Business Podcast, your source for all things business. My name is Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at AskAdamTorres. Keep up with my book releases, book tour schedule, signings, all that other good stuff. Always love to connect with you there. And as always, if you'd like to apply to become a co-author of one of my upcoming books, just head on over to the website, missionmatters.com, and click on Become an Author to apply. All right, so today I have Beth Miller on the line, and she is a talent management advisor and executive coach over at Executive Velocity. Beth, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Adam. I've been looking forward to talking to you.
So I'm excited to get into today's topic, hiring great people and developing future leaders. I can't think of a better person to have on the show to talk on that. But before we get into that, I do want to talk a little bit more about what you're doing over at Executive Velocity. So first, just tell us a little bit more about the company, please.
Yeah, so Executive Velocity, we work with small, mid-sized companies. So generally, those companies that are 50 employees to 300 employees. And we help them find talent. We're not recruiters, but find talent from a standpoint of assessing them and then developing that talent. So actually one of my clients calls me the talent whisperer.
So can you give me an example of, and you don't have to give clients or anything like that, but just so that, because I don't think everybody listening is they're gonna immediately put you in that recruiter box, right? Because that's what we've heard the most on media and other things. So I want to make sure we keep you out of that recruiter box and give. So can we give a little bit more of a defined example on how you would help a client, please?
Yes, sure. Here in Atlanta, which is where we're based, I'm currently working with a staffing agency, and they're recruiters. And what they came to me with was a problem where they were great at finding talent for their clients, but not so great at finding talent for themselves. So with an assessment that we used, we assessed all of their salespeople and all of their recruiters. And we were then able to take the results, and define what was the best characteristics that a salesperson internally within their organization had. Okay, so they knew their high performers. So that's kind of where they focused on. And from that, then they use the assessment each time that they are hiring for another salesperson and match the profile that we developed against the results of the candidates. So then we can see what gaps are within that candidate. And I then work with the hiring manager to develop some questions to determine, hey, how do they adapt their natural talents in specific situations that would make them successful as a salesperson, for instance.
Wow, I love that. It's a great example, and I love that you said you're helping recruiters find their flow. I love this. That's amazing, and I think that's a great transition for the broader topic. So hiring great people and developing future leaders. So you mentioned you're helping them with some gaps. Can you talk about what, and I know this is going to change obviously from company to company, size of company, industry, all those great things, but I do know certain themes tend to arise working with as many people as you have. So what are some of the common themes of those gaps that kind of arise?
Well, in this environment, you've got a lot of change taking place. And so one of the gaps that we see is individuals being able to embrace change. Those individuals that can't, in this instance, wouldn't be successful. And with many companies today, they would have challenges keeping up with change. So that's one of the trends that I see. The other is the ability to grow and develop. If you've got a high growth company, and I work with a lot of them, they want individuals that have potential to grow with the company. They're not looking for a specific set of skill sets for today, but skill sets for today and the ability to grow and develop more in the future as their company grows.
Yeah, I
so
love
that's
that.
And that's another.
I love that because the landscape has just changed. Things happen so fast. I always tell people, especially when we have some of our guests on the show that are maybe just starting out in their career or other things, they have all these pressures on them, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, you don't really know the function. You could be hired for one department or one thing and then be doing something completely different within a couple of years, depending on if the company pivots or all these other things. I'm like, when I graduated college, I couldn't even say, I want to be a podcaster when I grow up. What are you talking about? Podcast didn't even exist. Like, are you kidding me?
Exactly.
It wasn't even the thing, so you have no idea what's next.
Exactly. And I think the third area that I see a lot of gaps in is emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence is highly correlated to success, especially leadership success. And there are a lot of people that, first of all, don't understand what it is, and they don't understand how to develop it, because you can develop it. It's not like intellectual intelligence. It's emotional intelligence, and you can build techniques that will help develop your emotional intelligence.
I love that, and I love that you bring that up, because I always tell people, I'm like, well, emotional intelligence, at a pretty young age, I figured my IQ wasn't going to be off the charts, but I can control my EQ, so I'm in for EQ, and I was a Daniel Goleman fan and everything else from really young. Like, I can control this one, I can work on it. I don't know how good I'm going to get at some of these other things.
I totally agree, yeah.
Let's talk a little bit more about the leadership component and what it takes to cultivate and attract those good leaders.
Yeah, so that's obviously harder, because you know, they generally have more experience. There's a lot of challenges around pulling, good leaders from other companies. So one of the things that I work with companies to do is to develop leaders internally, identifying potential leaders. What does a potential leader look like? What are the core competencies that a leader needs to have in the organization to be successful? And then work with the organization to create development plans, both individually for a rising leader, and then coach to that plan. So those plans generally are 6 to 12 months, and some of the most successful ones that I've worked with have risen 2 and 3 layers within the organization, because they were self-aware, and they were very goal-oriented. So they were willing to stretch and try things that were uncomfortable for them, but then quickly saw success and repeated those behaviors over time. Wow.
What have you found has been some of the feedback from your clients for some of these and what would we call this? So are all of the programs 12 to 6 months or 12 months, or are there different varying levels?
Yeah,
let's find that out first.
Yeah, generally it's a minimum of 6 months, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to build new behaviors, and those don't happen overnight. And there are clients of mine who I've worked with before, and they got to a certain point, and then they were elevated into a new position, and they felt like they needed some more coaching around the situations that they were dealing with. In fact, I'm just about ready to start with a woman up in Philadelphia who has I started working with her 4 years ago, and 4 years later now she's been elevated twice, and she's now reporting directly to the CEO. So she's running into different situations that she feels like coaching will help her navigate.
Are there any particular niches or industries that you gravitate to, or that you tend to focus on more than others?
I can tell you what I don't focus on.
Mm-hmm.
And that is retail, hospitality. Those are, it's generally organizations that have knowledge workers in them. So high tech, professional services, healthcare. It's generally those kinds of organizations that will call me in.
That's awesome. And so, Beth, if somebody is listening to this and they want more information on executive velocity or to connect with you, whether they're businesses looking or for the personal side of consulting, what's the best way for them to reach out?
They could go to my website, which is www.executive-velocity.com.
Fantastic.
And my contact information's there.
That's awesome. So, Beth, awesome having you on the show today. Been great catching up and learning more about what you're doing over at Executive Velocity, of course, but also on your input on hiring great people and developing future leaders. So all great stuff there. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. Hope you got a lot of value out of this. If you did, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, leave me a review on the Apple iTunes Store. If you're watching this on our YouTube channel, Mission Matters Business, definitely give that a subscribe, but also leave us some comments in the comment section. Love to hear your thoughts on executive leadership and developing future leaders. Let's not let the conversation end here. Let's pick it up and take it over to the YouTube community. And Beth, thanks again for coming on the show.